and welcome to a special edition of the Amplifying Scientific Innovation video podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sophia Ononye-Onyia, founder and CEO of the Sophia Consulting Firm, an innovation leadership organization that advances digital storytelling and workforce development by translating complex ideas into strategy, visibility, and measurable impact. What began nearly 6 years ago in New York City has evolved into a California-based platform spanning a podcast, publications, and a student-led apprenticeship focused on digital storytelling and workforce development. Today's conversation is especially meaningful because we are celebrating the 6th anniversary of the podcast alongside the voices of Cohort 1 apprentices who have helped shape the early foundation of this workforce development program through their creativity, curiosity, and applied learning. Today we'll be reflecting on innovation, growth, storytelling, and the future of workforce development through the lens of the apprentices over the past year. All right, great. Let's meet our apprentices. Ava Moon, raise your hand, Ava, is from Troy High School. Also from Troy High School is Claire Wang. Hi, Claire. And also from Troy High School is Vivian Pham. And from Irvine High School is our first apprentice, Erica Pan. And then at Sonora High School, we have Shesi Perez. And then Pacifica High School is represented by Trang Nguyen. And finally, from California State Fullerton University is Leilani Wang. All right, welcome, apprentices, to our very first conversation on YouTube. So my favorite question is always the first one, and it's a question I've asked guests for the past 6 years. And the question is simple, is what's your definition of scientific innovation? And for each of these questions, you have about 1 to 2 minutes to talk. It doesn't mean you can't talk for 5 minutes. It just means it'll be slightly on the long side. So we're going to start out with Vivian. So Vivian, what is your definition of scientific innovation?
So my definition of scientific innovation, it was pretty broad when I first began the firm, because I mostly believed it pivoted towards major discoveries and also achievements. Now, however, I think it's been significantly shaped after the work around 2 particular episodes that I watched. So, for example, true scientific innovation extends beyond incremental improvements to encompass both structural disruption and also inclusive talent development. And so I mostly drew this from Daphne Zohar and also the episode I watched with Dr. Bill Rasser and H. Puentes. So I think both of those episodes show that ultimately meaningful innovation is mostly a generational systemic commitment that pairs financial capital with human connection in order to build equitable pipelines that ensure scientific leadership reflects the diverse community it serves.
Oh, wow. What a thoughtful response. I love how you thought about your digital portfolio, the work that you've been doing for the past 1 year, and what have you learned from watching all this podcast, integrating those insights and institutionalizing genius, something that you've also demonstrated in your previous work. So thank you for that. Now, moving on to Erica, same question. What is your definition of scientific innovation?
I think especially after like working in this apprenticeship, I think scientific innovation is also like about an act of empathy. You're not just focusing on like what you're building while you're doing all the sciencey stuff, but like who you're building it for. And I think throughout this like journey, the most meaningful innovations I learned aren't like necessarily just the loudest ones. They're the ones built around a real human need, an innovation, a connection, and empathy. So you're not just focusing on like just the scientific stuff, but also like the impact you're making.
I love that. Empathy to me is probably one of the secret ingredients of innovation, because first you have to care not just for yourself, but for the well-being of other people. And the impact that we have on others is the true definition of scientific innovation. So thank you for that, Erica. Now, moving on to Claire, same question. What is your definition of scientific innovation?
Similar to Vivian, I used to think that scientific innovation was more like a breakthrough or like an idea, but now I see that scientific innovation can be defined as anything that's like discovered or creative that builds upon knowledge that we already have with the goal of helping to support a particular mission. And what differentiates a scientific innovation from an invention is like its application, because it has to be implemented and applied to help real people in the real world to have value like beyond just its creation.
I love that. So it's not just about novelty, it's about its utility, right? What is the utility of the innovation? And I also love when you guys define innovation as not just this big breakthrough, but the gradual things that happen every day that makes our quality of life slightly better. That's enough to be an innovation. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So up next is Trang. And the question is simple. What is your definition of scientific innovation?
Yeah, my response is kind of similar to Erica's as well. In my opinion, scientific innovation is the research, creation, and continuation of science, technology, as well as creativity to solve humanity's biggest problems. But beyond just solving problems, I think it has to be done in an ethical way, socially impactful, because innovation doesn't consider the people it affects isn't really serving its purpose, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. As you know, I was born in Nigeria, so I always think about global impact, all the stuff that we're doing in the United States. Could it have an impact on my family back in West Africa? So I think it's a good way to think about it. Innovation has the ability to impact us beyond borders. It's really borderless, and I love that aspect of our definition. Now, Ava is ready to define scientific innovation. So Ava, go ahead.
Okay, so my definition of scientific innovation, it's really been largely impacted also by the discussion with the NIH on 3D bioprinting, where Dr. Ferrer kind of also repeated the same sentiment, where impact, creating a real tangible impact where it can be felt by communities, is actually what makes science kind of innovative. And I feel like that's also something that was reflected by Sophia the robot,
Yes.
where her utility as an AI also kind of expanded to humanitarian causes as well.
Absolutely. Imagine how AI also has an opinion on responsible, ethical, and conscious innovation. I think we all have a position on that and a place for innovation. We can all innovate in our own ways. Every day you get up and you think differently about how to use your phone, or maybe a shortcut to get to work slightly faster or get to school faster. That's an innovation in its own way. Now, Shesit, I can't wait to ask you this question. What is your definition of scientific innovation?
Say that my definition of scientific innovation would be to be able to develop and discover improvements that like impact us in our world. And I would also say science is everywhere. And like the word science could be like such a term that's like broad and it could cover really anything in our world. But that would be my definition of scientific innovation.
Yeah, I love that. Science is universal. And think about this when you guys get to college very, very soon. Some of you guys are already in college. Shout out to you, Lay. You find out that you're required to take a science class. You might not be required to take a business class if you're a science major like me, but you're always required to take a science class. People choose to study biology, for example. You could be chemistry like me or physics or whatever the case might be. But what makes science sort of universal to all of us? It offers some kind of explanation, a systematic way of studying things. And maybe that's what we need, little answers for our daily problems. Now, moving on to end this segment, I can't think of a better person than you, Lay. So please go ahead and define scientific innovation for us.
Well, to put it simply, I would define scientific innovation as new concepts and inventions that can help shape a brighter and safer future for humankind. And I took that because from what I learned from Wendy Lund's episode, she really took it. I took it to heart, really, because she mentioned mainly women who really need innovations and people who are discriminated against all the time, and especially in the health field, like believe it or not. So it makes me think that scientific innovation really needs to have its solutions that make life easier for everyday person and no discrimination against anyone.
I agree with you. I think we've had, and some of you guys mentioned it in your definition, we've had discussions on clinical trial diversity on the platform. And it was important for us to make sure that when we do clinical trials that we represent everybody, right? Because we cannot assume that a drug is going to work on a certain part of the population. Safety matters, efficacy matters, women's health matters. And obviously, we stand very strongly on that. So we've done great on this segment. And I think I'm excited to move on to our second segment. I find this one even more interesting in a little bit because this is my first time I'm asking this question on the platform. So my question for you guys, and I'm going to start with Trang, is how have you grown during the apprenticeship and how has the experience influenced your future career interest or your goals? Could you tell me?
Yeah, this apprenticeship opportunity really allowed me to think more deeply about my why. In particular, Dr. Sophia's mentorship really pushed me to think about why I'm passionate about science and how I can actually channel that passion and interest into my work, both now and in the future. I'm attending college soon, and I'm planning to major in computer science and cognitive science, and then eventually human-computer interactions because I care a lot about accessibility. So I want to help design technology that people without much experience can use, such as like a healthcare app where someone without much experience can make a doctor's appointment without struggling through a confusing interface. And my passion really grew here because the first podcast episode I analyzed was a conversation between Dr. Sophia and Mr. Goodwin from Pfizer. And his focus on making healthcare more accessible really resonated with me because it showed me that accessibility is still a big issue in like every industry.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And the college in question, is that University of California, San Diego, where you'll be studying computer science in the fall? Was it?
Yes, it is.
Good, good. Congratulations. I'm extremely proud of you. I used to live in San Diego, one of my favorite spots in the world. But I mean, this is exactly what we want to hear. I think your question about why, I still maintain that that is the most important question to ask. And in our new book coming up, we're going to start a chapter out by saying, why am I doing this? That's such an important question. So thank you for that. Now, moving on to Claire. How have you grown since you joined this program? What have you learned? How could that shape your future career?
Well, I've learned so many skills since joining, and one of my favorites that I learned was how to add a personal voice into all my content. Because before, I'd always just write things like how my teachers would want me to, which was mostly like objective summaries type of writing. But now I know how to add like a personal touch into my blogs and video content, which definitely taught me the importance of embracing my individuality and having a unique way of thinking. And there are a lot of things in this apprenticeship that I did for the first time in my life. And while it was intimidating at first, like editing and writing blogs, I learned to become more comfortable with the, I guess, uncomfortableness and to view things that I've never done before as like a learning opportunity. And in the future, I want to translate this type of feeling into anything I do and to take it as a sign to be more open to exploring new things. And this experience also highlighted the value of good mentorship to me, which I hope to reciprocate to future generations once I graduate high school and pursue a career.
Oh, Claire, please don't make me cry. It's too early in the podcast to start crying, but I appreciate your honesty. It really means a lot to me. Mentorship has been something I sought in my career, and I didn't often have people that cared enough to even pay attention to what I was doing. But owning your curiosity, personalizing yourself, and taking the time to introduce yourself to your audience is really skills that I learned from podcasting, and I'm happy to share with you guys. So thank you for that. And now back to Irvine High School. Off we go to find Erica again. So how have you grown? Tell me a little bit more.
I think really through this apprenticeship, I grew in understanding like what emphasis means, like especially when we're like analyzing the podcast, we're learning what to highlight, what to leave in, and what the audience should leave with. I think Dr. Sophia, you always tell us like what is our call to action? It's really identifying like what we want to share, what we want the people to really know. And something like the moment that genuinely shifted for me during my work was when I was analyzing a clinical trial diversity podcast, and the panelists were really honest about the conversation. They were honest about talking about failures and talking about improvement, and that kind of accountability really like resonated with me because in storytelling, I think that's actually where trust gets built. It's not always in the most polished version of a story, but in the honest one. And for my future, I really want to make work that reaches people whose stories don't usually get told. And this experience here at our apprenticeship really helped me like learn the language to do that.
Oh, thank you. I love to hear that. I mean, digital marketing will not be anything without some kind of CTA. What's your call to action? Why are you doing this? What do you hope to achieve? And I think if you start off with that, begin with the end in mind perspective, then you start to challenge yourself a bit better than you would even imagine. So I love the sophisticated responses I'm getting. You guys are blowing me away today. So Vivian said, okay, it's her turn. So now I got to hear from Vivian. How have you grown during the apprenticeship? Has the experience influenced your future career interest or goals? Now it's your turn.
So during this apprenticeship, my greatest growth has been transitioning from understanding the concepts and also the topics presented in the podcast episodes to being able to fully flesh them out through our blog posts and also our short and long form content videos. Because when I first started on our blog post, for example, it took me some time to articulate what I wanted to say and also being able to write that in a blog format, which I was unfamiliar with. And I also had to adjust to using CapCut as our main editing platform. But after working on our two back-to-back projects, I become much more confident in my writing capabilities and also at my editing workflow, where I'm able to produce content in a timely and efficient manner. So this experience has completely solidified my career goals because before starting, I always knew I liked online marketing and also content creation. But working on the 30-second podcast videos, for example, made me realize I wanted to focus in the social media specialist pathway, which I believe you mentioned in our one-on-one meeting. So it showed me where my strengths lie, and also gave me a concrete roadmap of what I want to do over the next few years.
Oh, thank you, Vivian. You make it very easy for me to talk about the next part. Yes, so we are on the path to get approved by both the California Division of Apprenticeship Standards and the U.S. Department of Labor for 5 occupations. One is the digital marketing apprentice, which is the foundation of our work. The second is a medical and lab technician role. The third is a project management specialist role. The fourth is an executive assistant role. And then the final one, which Vivian mentioned, is a social media specialist role. And I can't think of better people to propagate than the people that started it all. So thank you for that. I love how specific you are. From you, I went back to my, film studies classes in college. I don't know why I was taking film classes as a chemistry major. Don't ask me, okay? Maybe everything was preparing me for this moment. One of the things that Vivian left for us on our YouTube channel is film noir production, as well as comic book style production, which is something kind of new for us. And I appreciate that you brought that sophistication. So when you go off to film school in the future, we'll probably consult you to add some kind of value to us. Let me put it this way. We're going to stay in touch. You guys cannot get rid of me. All right. Next is Lay. Go ahead. Please tell me how you've grown and how the experience has influenced your future career interests or goals.
So I've grown during the apprenticeship through the way I approach video editing, where it really isn't as intimidating and complicated as one might think. And I'm grateful that this opportunity has made me learn to be more comfortable editing using CapCut, because I also learned how to grow an audience and keep viewer retention by strategizing when to post social media posts or podcasts even. And for example, posting a podcast episode focusing on women's health during Women's Health Awareness Week. And going into this apprenticeship, I already had some idea of a career I wanted to pursue, which was going into the arts, but I wasn't sure which career directly I wanted to go into. So along the way, I tried animating for posts, but then it didn't go so well, which is okay. So I just have a clear goal of what I want to do, which is illustrating.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that is so important in science is that 9 out of 10 experiments fail and we still carry on. It takes 10 to 14 years to approve a new drug. We still carry on. And as artists, I've gone through periods like when I first moved to California, I felt like I didn't have as much energy for writing or for podcasting like I used to. But then Sophia the robot woke me up and my life was never the same again. All right, Ava, now it's your turn. Not that I practiced that part. It just kind of happened organically. And yes, I know you analyzed Sophia the robot. It's one of my favorite episodes, but I can also say any of the 80 plus episodes that we've done in the past 6 years, you guys know this. I remember all of it. I appreciate all of it. And I continue to learn from all of it. So now it's Ava's turn. Tell us how she's grown. Go.
So I think what was like particularly interesting and also kind of what helped me grow my perspective was creating content itself. It kind of requires you to see and think about what would kind of engage the audience the most. So I think it helped expand my view of what actually catches people's attention and also retains it. And also I think this program itself, I've never been super big on sciences, to be completely honest, but I think through this program, I've actually realized how science kind of is everything. Like, as we said earlier, it is kind of seeped into every single thing that we do, regardless if it's humanities or it's anything, really everywhere. So I think it's such a useful skill that I've really been able to kind of look more into.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. I believe you want to go to law school in the future, right? But as we've shared, this apprenticeship is really about storytelling, and you've had a unique experience. What did you do during National Apprentice Week? I don't remember. Can you refresh my memory?
So I spoke at a panel during National Apprentice Week, and it also kind of gave me a lot of perspective into the different kinds of people also participating in apprenticeships and kind of how it changed a lot of people's lives and gave them more insight into the trajectory of their careers. I feel like it's been such a useful experience.
Awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. I think in such a short time, we've been able to accumulate a lot of experiences. It would not have happened without you guys. So thank you for all the energy that you've put in. And Shassid, do you think I'll ever forget you? No, of course not. So go ahead. Tell us, how have you grown? How has this changed who you are, who you're going to be?
Like to say I really appreciate the mentorship from you, Dr. Sophia. And from this experience, I believe that my perspective on storytelling and how to elaborate anything really further has progressed greatly over time since starting the apprenticeship. And also with the content creation aspects of this and marketing projects, it has really like confirmed and assured myself of continuing this pathway in my future. I would like to continue a digital marketing career. And I also feel like my confidence has greatly grown because of this, from key insights to amplifying my voice, really. And I would also like to mention I am not a huge science person, but this really like opened my mind to the aspects of science and how to like evolve that and involve that into what I connect with.
Yes, and you did a good job connecting music and science. Remember with the podcast that you analyzed with Dr. Bruce Levin and Max McCarthy. And for us, and for you and I, we talked about My Chemical Romance. We talked about music as sort of a form of advocacy. Now, I'm not the best singer, but good news, nobody's going to book me for my singing. So, yay. All right, this was a great segment. I love how you guys were able to share your opinions. I think one of the things that is very clear is that this apprenticeship is about freedom of expression. It's about your creativity, your thoughts, your curiosity. It's your journey. Even though we meet each week one-on-one, you guys, me and you, we meet once a month as a cohort, but ultimately it's your journey. And as you think about future apprentices programs, we obviously have cohort 2 that is ongoing, cohort 3 that is planned for the fall, and then the new pathways that are approved by the DAS and the DOL. So lots of good things happening for us in the future. So I'm curious, wise women, what advice would you give to future apprentices or students that are interested in digital storytelling, science, innovation, or even workforce development? So I don't know why. Maybe I should go with Shassid again. How about that?
Yes. A piece of advice I would give to future apprentices would be uh, like if you're curious about this field, it would be to like really go in depth regarding content and making sure like your voice is heard, amplifying it really. And you can like integrate your thoughts and ideas as you like. It's like really like a creative process, a creative freedom, and it's really encouraged. So don't be shy.
Yay.
Um,
And remind me, what are you doing this fall, Shassid?
I'm joining Fullerton College.
Oh, okay. To study.
I'm gonna study communications.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing it with us. I love that sort of connecting dots, right? You did this apprenticeship and it sort of finessed your interest. You were also interested in graphic design, a lot of different things. And I think this is a good way for you. Communication is important across all functions. So congratulations to you as well. And then Lay, could you please share any advice you would give to future apprentices?
Well, honest advice I would give to future apprentices is to not be afraid to ask for feedback and questions ahead of time because it could really help with the direction of your projects and to stay on track. And similarly, I recommend finding days to block out time to do your work because it helps, at least for me, to stay on track and be productive with my work. And lastly, I suggest following a key theme in your work because picking a core theme and sticking to your why could help with the flow of your story you want to tell.
I love how you talk about story flow. I didn't even think about the importance of that until I started podcasting 6 years ago. It's like, what is the story? What is the angle? We have a lot of people that apply for the apprentices and for the apprenticeship program, and they may or may not last, right? It may not work out for them because it really comes down to time. Are you willing to invest the time? Are you going to be willing to grow? And are you curious enough to ask questions? Sometimes we're like, oh, that's a stupid question. There are no stupid questions. We could make a few stupid mistakes here and there, but rather you ask what you might think is a stupid question than to make stupid mistakes. And for me, I don't like those labels anyway. A question is a question. So go ahead and ask those questions. Thank you for that. Now, Vivian, it's your turn. So tell me, what advice would you have for our future apprentices?
So my biggest piece of advice would be to never trade your authenticity for approval. So whether you're entering the workforce or going into science or launching any type of storytelling project, it's tempting to like hide your personal background in order to feel like you're safe and like you feel like you fit in. But I believe that innovation doesn't happen by following the norm. It happens when someone brings a completely fresh and also authentic perspective to the table. So I would say not to be afraid to tell your story exactly as it is, and also not to water down who you are in order to appeal to a mass audience. Because I think the more specific and honest you are, it amplifies like appealing to a mass audience. And so I think that trusting your background being an asset to the professional world in the long run, because the industry doesn't need another copy. It needs your unique perspective and also identity in order to truly innovate.
I love that. One of the episodes we had Dr. Mimi Huzenga, this was in season 4, and she said that authenticity is her leadership mantra. So if you want to be a leader, if you want to lead in any capacity, be yourself, be real. And the good news about this program is we care about your authentic voice. I don't want Claire to sound like Erica or Erica to sound like Vivian. I think you all have your own unique voices. So thank you for that excellent definition. Love it. All right. So who is next? Trang? So tell me, what advice would you have for our future apprentices?
My biggest piece of advice would be to be as open to new opportunities as possible. I think it's super easy and really common to feel unprepared or intimidated when you're young and experienced, but the only way to grow is by pushing yourself into unfamiliar situations. Like sometimes I don't feel like I'm the smartest in the room, but I remind myself I'm still in the room and I'm there to learn. So I think it's important to keep an open mind and ask for question and help when needed.
Yes, and one of the things I remember about you, Trang, is during the OC Pathway Showcase, Ava and I were sitting on the table, we're hosting the table, and you came up as part of your job as an ambassador for OC Pathways. You came up and you took pictures. You didn't ask questions like, hey, we need this for social media engagement. You guys are here. Let's do it. So I think part of being an innovator is being able to pick up beyond what you're being instructed to do. That's the beauty of imagination. I can say to you guys, build a slide deck and talk about a podcast, but you can only allow that experience to happen if you imagine what an alternative outcome could be. So thank you for sharing that. All right, off to Irvine. Back we go. I live in Irvine, so I don't know what that's probably why I keep mentioning where she goes to school. All right, Erica, your turn. So tell me, what advice would you have for our future apprentices?
Yeah, actually building off of like Vivian and like talking about authenticity, I think it's really important to like value your own skills and value your history and bring whatever you already do into the work. Like personally, I came into this apprenticeship as someone who practices film and like storytelling, and leaning into that really made the work feel like mine while I was working here, and I think it really helped me grow as a person.
I love it. And I think empathy is also a theme that keeps recurring in your work, which says a lot about who you are. Our work reveals a lot of our innermost thoughts. And once you start publicizing your thoughts, as you're doing an apprentice like this, you write a blog post, it's on our website, it's on social media. I think it gives you a level of exposure that some apprenticeship programs may not, but some people may not be ready for that. So I think coming in, hearing from you guys, like, okay, maybe I need to kind of like prepare a little bit before this starts. So thank you for sharing that. Ava, yes, it's your turn. So tell me, what advice would you have for our future apprentices?
So I think for me, one piece of advice that I would probably emphasize is taking initiative. I feel like at first, when I first applied to this apprenticeship, I saw that maybe only one or two people would be chosen. And I was thinking, what are the chances I'm even going to get into this? But I just put my application in anyways and regardless. and I actually got in. So I was pretty excited about that. And also with the same thing of you giving the opportunity for us to speak at a panel. I saw the email and then immediately responded back as quickly as I could because I thought it was really important that I would be able to meet all the people behind this and also kind of being able to network as well. So I think taking initiative and kind of being the first to try is really important.
Well, that is great to hear. As you know, you're exactly right. I was going to hire just Erica, just one person, and then I met more and more and more of you guys. I couldn't say no. Now, future cohorts will probably be smaller. Cohort two is it's about 3 people, so just a bit more manageable. But the first one is always, in some ways, it's like your first child. It's the one where you experiment a little bit, but there's a lot of attachment also involved. So thank you for giving me that grace. And just a side note, guys, Ava's presentation in Long Beach, California, for the Employer Forum during the National Apprentice Week was selected for an apprentice spotlight position by the California DAS. So she was very personable in just speaking to the crowd. And we appreciate people that take initiative because I'm just like that. All right. Who is going to close out this amazing section? Oh, there you go, Claire. There you go. What advice would you give for our future apprentices?
I would personally advise them to take opportunities and to put yourself out there because there really is a lot that you can learn. And I'd also tell them that it doesn't matter how much experience you had or the amount of skill that you already have, but it's rather like your eagerness to learn and develop as both an apprentice and an individual. Because as someone who personally had no background in digital marketing and was also a STEM-based person, joining this apprenticeship was a little bit like out of the norm for me, but nevertheless, I still learned a lot and grew a lot too.
Yeah.
Oh, oh yeah. And then another piece of advice I would have is to also look for strong mentors because I think a good mentor really makes a good apprentice and a good student, and they make so much more of a difference than you think. And because of that, I'm really grateful to Dr. Sophia, who is an amazing mentor. And because of her, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that in order to grow, you really have to have a passion for what you do, and you always have to think about your why.
No, thank you. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. So chapter 3 of our new book is going to be, Am I Still Open to Learning? That's really what that theme is. And I think it's an important thing to think about when you enter into any new job, any new role, whatever you do, are you still open to learning? So thank you for that. And the best part of an apprenticeship program for me is the mentorship side. That's really what you get from doing this. And I wouldn't have been able to mentor if I didn't have such great mentees. Now, as we close out today, I imagine we've had sort of the usual responses. Very great. This is sort of your free round. I just want you to speak your mind, okay? Okay, no perfection, just speak your mind. So do you have any additional thoughts, reflections, or comments that you want to share today? And we can do this in any order. I think I'll spice it up a little bit. Erica, any final thoughts for us today?
I just wanted to share, I think really throughout our work, something I'll carry with me is that like the stories we tell about science, they kind of shape whether people trust it, engage with it, or feel like it was ever made for them. And I think that's kind of like a responsibility we're learning to like practice and to put into our work.
I love it. The stories we tell, they also live on. This one is going to be on YouTube forever. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So, Lay, would you like to go next? And any final thoughts for today?
Well, just reflecting on the past months, I honestly have been struggling with hitting dead ends with myself, to be completely honest. But something, Dr. Sophia, you have said on our one-on-one meetings was something along the lines of how you know you're growing when you're struggling. And I think to myself now and then that for there to be growth, there needs to be hardship. So you don't progress if you don't do anything. And it's better to struggle now than later.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I can't tell you guys how much struggle my life has been. I've moved from a different country to the US like 24 years ago. Okay, some of you, well, most of all of you. All right, fine, whatever, be that way. So I moved to the US about 2 decades ago. For the past 2 decades, I've lived in different parts of the country, from Connecticut to California, New York, New Jersey, Maine, San Diego, all that stuff. It takes a toll on you. But I think the points I've made to you guys, the passion keeps me going. And I'm very, very passionate about amplifying scientific innovation. Okay, fine. Vivian, it's your turn. Any final thoughts for today?
So I think altogether, this apprenticeship has transformed my professional approach through three key shifts. So embracing critical feedback in order to accelerate my creative growth, building rigorous organizational systems to manage diverse content and also strict deadlines, and also shifting my focus from pure, like just visual appeal to more audience-driven and also impactful storytelling.
I love it. I mean, search engine optimization, that's part of what this job is, right? When you're thinking about marketing, you're thinking about what are people going to read? It's not just what your opinions are. Everybody has an opinion, but what makes your opinion relevant? So thank you for sharing that. Shessid, we're going to go with you now for final thoughts.
Work from the future apprentices that they
You want to
craft.
repeat? Do you want to
Okay.
start again?
Okay. I cannot wait to potentially see any work the future apprentices craft and maybe compare and contrast their work with ours. And in case like the program changes along anything, but I really would like to see what they do and how different it is.
Yeah. Now, differentiation is not so much what it is, right? They're going to take different podcast episodes than the ones you guys analyze. They're going to do the same thing, but we're going to see, can they do what Shessid does? Can they connect music and science the way that you do? So we'll see. I think they might be up to it, but we'll see. All right. And for you, Claire, any final thoughts, reflections, or comments you'd like to share?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone here for being like so amazing. Everyone here is really talented and really unique, and it was really fun to see the different kinds of work that everyone produced. Because also being surrounded by people with like the same curiosity as me really pushed me to work harder and find my own like personal story and touch, which I think was really valuable.
Awesome. Thank you. I think it's a cohort. That was my idea, was to bring you guys together and to share ideas beyond just what we can do one-on-one, but as a group collectively to see how everybody sort of approaches similar projects in their own unique way. All right. So Trang, I know you said it's your turn to talk about your final thoughts. So go ahead, please share.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize what I've learned from you, Dr. Sophia, is that it's so important to carry passion and purpose in our work.
Mm,
It's
mm.
super easy to get lost in today's fast-paced environment, as you mentioned, since you've moved to so many states throughout the years, and everyone's just chasing something. But since, like, when you have your morals and beliefs and you're willing to put that and channel it into your work, it makes everything so much more meaningful. It allows you to keep going and it allows your work to resonate with more people. So I find that really touching, and I'll channel that into my future work.
Oh, thank you. I started a podcast in 2020, June 2020. I was living in Brooklyn, New York. And it was, New York was so different then. People were dying from COVID and everything. And I wanted to bring hope to the world. And I wanted to make science more accessible. So we do have the accessibility, see, in common. And I love to know that through your computer science college education, you're going to keep thinking about ways to make information and knowledge more accessible to all. So thank you for that. And so we're going to close out today with Ava. Please share your final thoughts, reflections, or comments.
I just wanted to kind of speak about like a broader concern I feel a lot of young people these days also hold. It's also like a lot of concern about the job market and
Yeah.
also our place as people. I feel like we often feel lost in an environment that just kind of pushes AI so heavily. But I feel like having an apprenticeship and having someone that really helps guide you, I feel like it really just changes like the trajectory of your career. I feel like it, especially as Dr. Ononye, like she really emphasizes storytelling and purpose. I feel like that is really kind of like something very human and something that is very much needed in this modern day.
Yeah, remember one of the publications I cite the most was the Harvard Business Review 2003 article that says that information that is presented through storytelling is 20 times more likely to be retained than just pure facts alone. So I think we all have the ability to tell stories. It's your voice, your perspective, and your authenticity. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your hard work, professionalism, creativity, and willingness to grow throughout this journey. I know it hasn't been easy. We've had strict deadlines. You've been like, oh, gosh, we have to see this stuff on YouTube. We have to get stuff published on our website. But the Apprentice has always been more than just content creation. It's also about building confidence, communication skills, critical thinking, and meaningful workforce pathways through applied learning and, of course, digital storytelling. Watching this evolve from a podcast into a student-led platform focused on measurable workforce development has been incredibly rewarding. And to our listeners, thank you for supporting Amplifying Scientific Innovation over the past 6 years as we continue to amplify voices shaping the future of science, healthcare, innovation, and workforce development. Until next time, have a great one. Thank you, everyone, and have a great happy June 2026. So thank you guys. Bye. See, yeah, we did it. Okay. All right. Cool.